The sun was just beginning to dip behind the hills, painting the road in hues of amber and gold. The air smelled of gasoline and freedom as the roar of motorcycles echoed across the valley. A group of bikers sped down the winding highway, black jackets, chrome shining, laughter cutting through the hum of the engines. To anyone watching, they looked like a force, fearless, unstoppable, living life 1 mile at a time. Among them was Ethan, the leader, known for his confidence and a bit of an edge. The road was his stage, and his bike, his pride. They had been riding for hours when they spotted something odd ahead. An old man on the roadside, bent over a rusted motorcycle. The bike looked ancient, its paint chipped, tires worn, chain dangling loose like it had given up on being fixed. The man was struggling to push it toward the shoulder, his hands trembling slightly, sweat dripping from his forehead. Ethan slowed down first, then the rest followed. For a moment, they just watched. The old man's jacket was torn, his jeans covered in dust. He looked like someone who had been forgotten by time. One of the younger riders chuckled. "That thing belongs in a museum," he said. Another added, "Man, does he think that junk will ever run again?" The group laughed lightly, not out of cruelty, but ignorance. The kind that comes when youth forgets that one day, it too will grow old. Ethan smirked, shaking his head. "Come on, guys. Let's not waste time. The next diner's just a few miles ahead." They revved their engines, ready to move on. But just then, the old man looked up. His eyes, pale blue, tired but steady, met Ethan's for a brief moment. And in that moment, something stopped Ethan cold. There was something familiar in those eyes, something powerful. The old man gave a faint smile, as if he understood their laughter, as if he had seen it before. Then he spoke softly, his voice cracked but calm. "You ride fast, son. But one day you'll learn the road has its own pace." Ethan frowned, not sure what to say. Yeah, well, I've been on this road long enough to know my pace just fine." The old man nodded slowly, turning back to his bike. "Maybe, but every road has a story. Every bike has a soul, even this one." Something in his tone made Ethan pause. Against his usual instinct, he signaled the group to stop. "All right, old man," he said, trying to sound lighthearted. "Need a hand?" The old man smiled faintly. "Only if you don't mind getting your hands dirty." They parked along the side of the road, and for the next few minutes the laughter was replaced with the clinking of tools, the soft hum of conversation, and the sound of kindness that none of them even realized they were showing. As they worked, Ethan noticed something, etched faintly on the fuel tank, barely visible under years of dust and scratches, were 3 letters. RM. Ethan froze. He ran his fingers over the letters, then turned toward the old man. "Hey, these initials, are they yours?" The old man looked up, his eyes catching the fading sunlight. "Used to be," he said quietly. "Wait," one of the bikers whispered. "RM? No way. You can't mean—" Ethan's voice dropped. "Ryder Mason." The old man smiled again, this time with a glimmer of amusement. "Haven't heard that name in a long time." The group fell silent. They all knew that name. Ryder Mason, the man who, decades ago, founded one of the country's first biker communities. Not a gang, a brotherhood. He was the one who had preached respect, unity, and compassion on the road. He believed bikers weren't rebels or outlaws. They were guardians of freedom, keepers of the road's unwritten rules. Every biker knew his legacy, the rallies he organized, the rides for charity, the way he used to stop for strangers and fix their bikes without asking for a dime. But he had vanished years ago, and no one knew what became of him. And now here he was, an old man with a broken-down motorcycle, standing before the new generation who had laughed at him minutes earlier. Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Sir, we didn't know," he said softly. Ryder chuckled, shaking his head. "You weren't supposed to. That's the thing about the road. It doesn't care who you were, only who you are today." The group stood around, unsure how to respond. Guilt hung in the air, but Ryder's eyes were kind. He didn't look offended or hurt, only peaceful. Ethan spoke again. "Why didn't you ever come back? People thought you were gone." Ryder sighed, gazing at the horizon. I rode too long, too far. The fame, the noise, the speed, it all fades. After my wife passed, I realized the road wasn't about how fast you ride, but how deeply you live. So I kept riding quietly, helping where I could. Somewhere along the way, people stopped remembering. That's all right. I didn't ride to be remembered. The group listened silently. The sun was almost gone now, leaving a soft purple glow in the sky. Ryder looked at his old bike, patted it gently, and smiled. This old thing took me across the country more times than I can count. Broke down 100 times, but it always got me home. Just like life. Breaks down, but you fix it and keep going. Ethan swallowed hard. Something inside him shifted. The arrogance in his voice disappeared. Sir, let us fix it properly. Please, together, they worked in silence, carefully tightening bolts, cleaning the carburetor, and refueling the old machine. It took time, patience, and a kind of reverence none of them expected to feel. When the engine finally roared to life with a rough but steady growl, Ryder's face lit up with a boyish grin. The bikers cheered, clapping and laughing. Not the mocking laughter from before, but genuine joy. Ryder stood beside Ethan. Thank you, he said softly. You reminded me that the spirit's still alive. The brotherhood, the care, the heart of what we built. Ethan shook his head. No, sir. You reminded us what being a biker really means. Ryder chuckled again. Then we both learned something today. He climbed onto his bike, slow, careful, but proud. The group stood back as he revved the engine once more. For a moment, time seemed to turn backward, the old legend reborn in the fading light. Before leaving, he looked at Ethan one last time and said, Take care of the road, son. It's not just asphalt and lines. It's the story of everyone who ever rode it. Keep it kind. With that, he rode off into the dusk, the sound of his engine fading into the wind. The group stood there speechless, watching until he vanished beyond the curve. No one spoke for a long time. Then Ethan whispered, We laughed at him, and he turned out to be the man who taught the world what it means to ride. The youngest rider, who had mocked first, took off his helmet and said quietly, Guess the road just taught us a lesson. Ethan nodded. Yeah, that respect isn't about who's faster. It's about who remembers where they came from. That night, they rode in silence. No music, no jokes, just the soft hum of engines under the starlit sky. But something was different. Their ride felt heavier yet purer. They weren't just bikers anymore. They were part of a story, a legacy, carried forward by kindness, humility, and the memory of a man who once showed the world what brotherhood truly meant. Later, Ethan started a small ritual within their club. Every year on that same day, they'd stop their ride wherever they were, find someone struggling on the road, and help. No matter who it was, no matter how small the act. They called it Rider's Rule, because sometimes the greatest riders aren't the ones who go the fastest, but the ones who stop when others don't. And somewhere out there, under a sky full of stars, Ryder Mason kept riding. Not for fame, not for glory, but for the road itself, and for the kindness that still lived on it.